What if I told you that the AI revolution isn't being led by the companies charging you $20, $50, or $200 a month? What if the real disruption is happening in dorm rooms, in garages, and on GitHub repositories at 3 in the morning by people who decided they weren't willing to rent power they could own? Today we're talking about the open source AI movement and why it might be the most important democratization of power since the printing press changed who controlled the word. If you're not leveraging it, you're leaving money on the table. And more importantly, you're leaving your sovereignty behind. Welcome back. My name is your name. And if you're an entrepreneur, a developer, a leader, or someone who believes that powerful tools should not be locked behind paywalls, this video is for you. Today we go deep on open source AI, why it's closing the gap on the giants, what it means for your business right now, and the biblical principle of stewardship that makes this far more than just a tech story. This is where engineering thinking meets entrepreneurial opportunity and where faith informs how we build. For years, the narrative was simple and unchallenged. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, billions in funding, planet-scale data centers, armies of PhDs. No one else could compete. If you wanted cutting-edge AI, you paid their price, accepted their terms, and hoped they didn't deprecate your workflow without warning. You were a tenant in someone else's digital kingdom. But something seismic shifted in 2025 and 2026. A wave of open-source models, Llama, Mistral, DeepSeek, and dozens of others began closing the gap. Not perfectly, not in every dimension, but enough that businesses started asking a dangerous question. Why are we paying premium prices for something we can run ourselves? Some open-source models now match GPT-4 on standard benchmarks. Others exceeded on specific specialized tasks. And the cost? A fraction, sometimes nothing at all. This is more than a cost-saving measure. This is a strategic play for control, customization, and sovereignty. Let me tell you about a client I mentored. I'll call her Sarah. She runs a boutique marketing agency. Her team was spending $3,200 a month on various AI tools, content generation, social media analysis, client communication drafts. It was working, but the costs were climbing, and she was growing deeply uncomfortable with something no one else in her industry was talking about. Her clients' most sensitive proprietary data was sitting on third-party servers she didn't control and couldn't audit. She was building her castle on rented land. Following my guidance, she tasked her lead developer, a brilliant 22-year-old who had been experimenting with open-source models on weekends, to explore alternatives. He downloaded an open-source model, fine-tuned it on their brand guidelines and internal workflows, and built a custom tool that ran entirely on their own secure local server. It wasn't just cheaper, it was better, because it understood their specific tone of voice, their client categories, their workflow nuances with a depth of customization no generic software product could match. Sarah cut her AI costs by 94%, but more importantly, she gained sovereignty, control, the ability to customize freely without begging a vendor for a feature. She told me, "I felt like David looking at Goliath for the first time and realizing David didn't win because he was stronger. He won because he refused to fight by Goliath's rules. He used his own tools, his own strategy, his own faith." That David parallel takes me directly to Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. A master gives 3 servants different amounts before leaving on a journey. 2 invest and multiply what they were given. 1 buries his talent in the ground out of fear and calls it wisdom. The master's response is startling. He doesn't praise the one who buried his talent because he played it safe. He calls him wicked and lazy. Why? Because stewardship isn't about hoarding, it's about multiplying. It's about taking what you've been entrusted with, whether that's time, capital, intelligence, or access to powerful technology, and making it produce more. Open source AI is a talent multiplier. It takes power that was concentrated in the hands of very few and distributes it to the many. The playing field levels. But here's the catch. The talent only multiplies if you use it. If you bury it, if you stay with what's comfortable, what's familiar, what the biggest brands tell you to use, you are not stewarding well. You are playing it safe while the world moves forward without you. As leaders and entrepreneurs, we are called to be faithful stewards of every resource entrusted to us, including the cutting-edge tools that God has allowed our generation to discover. As entrepreneurs, we talk about disruption constantly. But real disruption doesn't come from having more resources. It comes from being more resourceful. Open source AI is the ultimate resourcefulness play. It levels the field between a solo founder and a Fortune 500 company. It lets you build a serious competitive advantage without a billion-dollar war chest. But it demands something in return: competence. You cannot download an open source model and expect magic. You need to understand it, customize it, maintain it, and secure it. This is where engineering thinking becomes your leadership advantage. The leaders who understand enough about how these systems work, even if they are not writing code personally, will consistently make better decisions about when to build, when to buy, and when to partner. Let me be honest about the risks, because I'm not here to sell you a fantasy. Open source AI requires technical skill. It requires genuine security awareness. It requires ongoing maintenance. If you don't have those capabilities in-house, the free option can become very expensive very fast. Sometimes paying for a fully managed service is the right stewardship decision. Sometimes building your own is. The leader's job isn't to always choose the cheapest option. It's to choose the option that creates the most value, control, and security for your specific mission. Strategy, not just cost-cutting. So here's your action step for this week. Ask yourself, where am I paying premium prices for something I could build or customize myself? Where is vendor lock-in silently limiting my options? Where could open source tools give me an edge in privacy, performance, or cost? Start small. Pick one process. Do the research. Talk to someone who knows more than you in this space. Because the future belongs to those who control their own tools, their own data, their own destiny. The ones who are faithful stewards of every resource God has placed in their hands. If this fired you up, hit that like button. Comment below. Are you team build your own or team buy the best? I'm genuinely curious where you land and why. And what specific open source tools are you already exploring? Let's learn from each other in the comments. Subscribe and follow for more content on leadership, AI, business, engineering, and faith. And share this with a founder who's bleeding money on subscriptions. Show them what's possible when you decide to own your tools instead of renting them. See you in the next one.